I'm sure that you've heard the expression of speech that somebody is tongue-tied, but I found out just about a year ago that saying that somebody is tongue-tied is not just an expression of speech, but it's actually a medical condition. And I found this out when I was diagnosed with a tongue tie. As I learned that I have a tongue tie, and then I went down that rabbit hole of exploring what that is and how that impacts me and what I need to do to heal, I also learned that I have cheek and lip ties as well. Together, we can call these oral ties. So, I'm going to talk about what oral ties are and how they impact your whole body and your overall health, as well as the healing process, the healing journey for these medical conditions. I'm also going to talk about my own personal story of how I got diagnosed, the healing journey that I've been on so far, and the healing journey that I have ahead of me. So, I'm tongue-tied. Now, I just ate some blueberries, so my tongue is a little blue, and I tried to drink some tea to make it go away, but oh well. I'm going to show you what my tongue tie and what my cheek and lip ties look like today, and I'll also show you what I have for before and after getting my cheek and lip ties released, and I'll talk about the process ahead as I work towards getting my tongue tie released as well. So first, I'll show you my tongue tie. So that wonky word is the technical name for a tongue tie, but I'm not even going to try to say it. And you can also call tongue ties oral ties or oral tethers. Frenectomy is the name of the surgery to release a tongue tie and to also release any other oral ties. Oral ties are connective tissue that are part of the fascial system of the body. Everyone has this connective tissue, but when you have an oral tie, the tissue is tight, restrictive, and it may reach farther than it's supposed to. You can see the tissue comes out towards the tip of my tongue farther than it would with somebody without a tongue tie. Let me show you some other people's before and after pictures so you have a reference. Here we can see in the first picture, picture A, there is a tongue tie present and the tongue is restricted from reaching the roof of the mouth with the mouth open. Then in picture B, it is immediately after post-op where that tissue has been surgically removed. And then picture C, once it is healed, the tongue is reaching up towards the roof of the mouth, and you can see that the person has a better ability to do that. These images, we have a baseline at the top, and you can see in the second picture in that first line that the person has their mouth open and they're trying to reach the top of their tongue up to the roof of their mouth. And then in that third photo in that first line, the person is suctioning their tongue up to the roof of their mouth. The second row of photos is immediate after post-op, as it mentions. And then that bottom row is the fully healed, 2 months or more after that surgical release of those tissues. Let's take a closer look at what it's supposed to look like under the tongue so that you can decide if you or a loved one has a tongue tie. The tongue is still attached to the floor of the mouth, but that tissue is no longer tight and restrictive. Cheek and lip ties? I've actually already had my cheek and lip ties released. So this is what they look like after they have been released and healed. And I will show you what they looked like before in just a moment. I might need a revision of those, but that will come down the road. Hello, that is my mouth. I had to send this as a part of my evaluation when I was first working with my myofunctional therapist, and so that's why I have the cheek retractors in. And you can kind of see my bottom cheek ties. Those have actually not been released, and I'm not sure if we're going to release them or not. And you can kind of see my upper cheek ties, but it's kind of hard to see my lip ties in this video, so let me see if I can find another one. This is when I was on my way to getting my outer oral ties released. There's my lower lip tie, and my upper lip tie. As I mentioned, I got the 2 lip ties and the upper cheek ties released. I did not get the lower cheek ties released yet. And then I will also show you how far my tongue can currently stick out of my mouth without forcing it. So this is my tongue. This is me sticking my tongue out with effort, but without forcing. So as you will see, my tongue does not stick very far out of my mouth before I start to feel the pulling from that restrictive tissue that's under my tongue. It's literally keeping my tongue down and back inside of my mouth. So that's how far my tongue sticks out when it starts to feel the restriction. If I force past that, this is what that looks like. So I can force my tongue to go out further, as you can see, but in order to do that, I have to jut my jaw forward, which you can see really well on this side. At this angle, you can see my lower jawbone moves forward as my tongue comes forward. And you can also see when I turn my head to this side that I have to flex muscles in my cheeks in order to get my tongue to stick out further. I want to show that side profile again so that you can really see that bottom jaw, how it has to jut forward. You can see it go forward right there. And then as it comes back, as the tongue comes back into the mouth. Once again, showing that the tongue has restricted movement and restricted range of motion, and that in order for the tongue to have its range of motion and function, adaptations have to be made, like flexing other muscles of the face and jutting the jaw forward. If I open my mouth and try to stick my tongue up to the roof of my mouth, you'll see that my tongue is literally tied down to the floor of my mouth, and the only way that my tongue can reach the roof of my mouth with my mouth open is to raise my lower jaw. The normal range of motion for the tongue here is to be able to have the mouth open wide and the tip of the tongue be able to reach the palate. You should actually even be able to reach the soft palate, which is further back, but as you can see, my tongue doesn't even reach the roof of my mouth with my mouth open. So if I allow my tongue to go all the way to the roof of my mouth, this is how far my mouth can open. With a tongue tie, the tongue's range of motion is restricted when coming out of the mouth and also when reaching to the roof of the mouth. If I want to stick my tongue out with my mouth open, this is how far I can stick my tongue out. Again, I was eating frozen blueberries, so my tongue is blue. First, I'll do it without forcing it, and then I will force it to stick out further. It feels a little awkward and vulnerable to be opening my mouth and showing my tongue on the internet, but I think it's important to get these before images so that we can really understand how the tongue is restricted by a tongue tie, and also how much better it'll be when that tongue tie is released when it comes to the function of the tongue and everything that the tongue impacts, which is a lot. How you eat, how you breathe affects how you sleep, how you eat affects your digestion. I mean, the whole body really is interconnected. Here is a picture of that deep front line of fascia that is all connected under the tongue. So at the top you have the tongue, and then it goes down the lungs, the diaphragm, down to the pubic symphysis, the kneecaps, and all the way down to the toes. So when I say that this affects the whole body, I really mean that it affects the whole body. Our body is an interconnected system, and the fascia especially is connected. When there is tight tissue and adhesions in one area of the fascia, there can be tension and restriction in other areas of the fascia as well. One of the first steps that I took on my healing journey was finding a myofunctional therapist to work with, and I found the tongue therapist on Instagram. I got this from the tongue therapist page. It says, a tongue tie is a tie in the deep front line of fascia. Fascia is a connective tissue that surrounds all the structures of your body. Fascia is inelastic, so having a tie in one area can create tension through the whole matrix of fascia. The deep front line of fascia goes from the tongue all the way down to the toes. This is why the tension from the tongue tie can be felt through the whole body, and effects of this can include toe walking, posture alignment issues, or chronic tightness that won't resolve. And that tension can be felt in different areas of the body depending on you and how your unique body is reacting to this condition. You can feel pain in your neck, in your shoulders, in your back, down your legs, in your feet.
And a lot of people will report feeling a full body release after they get their tongue tie released. Here are a couple other images that show the various fascial lines that run through the body. Next, I want to show you these images that are a illustration that is basically a map of the areas and proportions of the human brain dedicated to processing motor functions and or sensory functions for different parts of the body. As we zoom in, you can see that so many areas highlighted on the map are also areas that are impacted by a tongue tie. Here is just another type of illustration of that map that we just viewed, just in a different way. Next, I want to show you the videos that I submitted to my myofunctional therapist when I first was having my evaluation with her. And the reason why I want to show you these videos is because it illustrates how somebody may be not using their tongue properly when they have a tongue tie and not even know it. So the first little test was for me to put these cheek retractors in and then try to swallow. You can hear me making a clicking sound as I'm trying to swallow, and also that facial expression was because I realized that I had no idea how to swallow without using my cheeks, and just using my tongue isolated was actually really challenging for me at first. We're just going to keep it on this super cute image of me while I explain the proper way to swallow is to take your tongue to the spot right behind your teeth, and then the tongue kind of does a wave-like motion up against the palate as it massages the food back towards the back of the tongue and then down the throat. You're not actually supposed to be using your cheeks to help push the food down, and I was. Next, she had me doing some basic movements with my tongue just to see the range of motion with my tongue and to also see how my tongue tie was restricting my tongue from doing motions. She's also looking to see any movements and flexion that I'm making with other muscles of the face, because again, part of having a tongue tie is that you overcompensate with other muscles because your tongue is not functioning properly. You can also get a little bit better look at my tongue tie from some different angles here as well. Next, she had me take the tip of my tongue right behind my front teeth and then with my mouth open, suction my tongue to the top of my mouth. And as you can see, I had a hard time doing this. It felt very awkward. And you can also see that my tongue is wanting to pull to one side. Your tongue is actually a muscle that is made up of 4 individual muscles. You have 2 muscles on each side of your tongue.
That feels really difficult to hold.
So even if you don't have a tongue tie, those muscles can be weaker on one side or the other, and you can have dysfunction there. But especially if you have a tongue tie, you are more likely to show dysfunction with the muscles of the tongue and your ability to use them properly. So here again, you can see that my muscles of my tongue are weaker on one side than the other, which is why my tongue is wanting to pull down on one side and is staying up better on the other side. This was before any myofunctional therapy had started, and this is one of the goals of myofunctional therapy, is to help strengthen the tongue and to allow it to function properly. This is honestly a very basic intro into tongue tie and oral ties, but now you know what a tongue tie is, what they look like, and basically what we're looking for when we go to diagnose one. Thank you for watching. This is the first video of a series that is going to be all about tongue tie and tongue tie release. In the following videos, I'm going to talk about tongue tie and how it affects an individual at the various stages of life. I'm also going to talk about why tongue ties have been underdiagnosed in the past and why so many people are undiagnosed right now. And then I'm also going to tell my diagnosis story about how I found out that I had a tongue tie and what set me on my journey to actually seeking to get my tongue tie released. And then I'll also talk about getting my outer oral ties released and what that experience was like for me as well. So stay tuned for more. Take care, and may you have love in your heart and peace in your mind, and may you have health in your body. Peace and love to you. Bye-bye.